we're going to discuss redefining retailing in travel. Winning and retaining the customer in the digital age is really a challenge, and there has changed a lot. And we invited three powerhouses from the travel industry to share their insights with us. Thank you to every single one of you to be here with us. We love having you here in the room. And I'd say get ready for the next 30 minutes. It's going to be a fantastic session. But first, we will set the scene with a short impulse keynote by Amy Reed from Sabre Corporation. And she will tell you why we have to discuss this topic. And she will open your brains so we're all in the topic and ready to discuss this. So please, Amy Reed, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here today. Just to introduce myself, I'm Amy Reed. I look after innovation for Sabre Hospitality. So I joined Sabre back in June 2023 when my startup, which was an e-commerce platform helping hotels sell anything beyond the room, was acquired by Sabre. So as part of that acquisition, I've now moved on to look after innovation, in particularly AI and payments, but I really have a passion for retailing. So I'm just going to introduce and kind of look at the trends in terms of innovation and retailing overall. So I think we all know the e-commerce booking journey hasn't changed in over 30 years. It's always assumed that guests know the exact destination they want to travel to, the dates of travel, and the party size. Now, while the latter may hold true, the former certainly doesn't. In fact, 60% of today's guests have no idea of the destination they want to travel to when they're starting that booking journey. And this is even more evident across key segments. So just taking a few as example, the family segments. And that will, of course, differ depending upon the age of the children. But thinking of families with young children, they're likely to prioritize babysitting services, facilities, entertainments, room configurations, over and above the destination and the hotel in mind. And then you have the luxury segment, which is all about the hotel brand. It's all about the exclusiveness. It's all about the service. And then I think we know millennials and Gen Z are a generation of their own, and it's all about the experience. They'll prioritize the experience and that Instagrammable moment above and beyond anything else. So from a retailing perspective as a hotel, how do you get that right across all those different segments? And then it complicates it even more that you've got to think about the changing mindset for those travelers. So some will be traveling for fun as a family tour, but also then when they're traveling for work, they will then prioritize alternative things like Wi-Fi, like 24/7 room service, transportation, above anything else. So when we think about for the hotels, what's important? It's important to be able to have the right content on property, and also to marry that with off-property experiences. So having access to the right experiences, service, and amenities, so you can really start to personalize that guest experience when they come to your property. The one good thing is that Gen AI innovation is really helping to accelerate the retailing journey. So when you think about the traditional forms of booking, it used to always be seen that it was, you search, you compare, and then you book. But now we're starting to see disruption, and the disruption is coming from 75% of today's guests actually get their destination inspiration from social media. And then when you marry that up with Gen AI, we're seeing 43% of travelers today using Gen AI tools like ChatGPT and Gemini to actually get booking recommendations and itineraries. So for hoteliers, this is your prime opportunity. One, leveraging social media and being able to target customers much more earlier in the marketing funnel and the marketing journey. And then if you can direct them back to your website, and you utilize these Gen AI tools and these AI agents over your website, you can really personalize that guest experience. And nobody is better positioned to do that than the hotels themselves, because nobody knows what guests want when they come on your property, apart from the hotel. So if we think about personalization moving forward, the data that you have, being able to leverage these tools is your way to really drive back direct bookings and drive loyalty within your channels. So when customers or hotels come to us and ask, what are our key recommendations? The first thing is getting the right retailing mix, getting access to the right content, and that's from, as we said, on-property and off-property experiences. Unifying your data, as we said, Your data is your superpower. Nobody has the data that hotels have in delivering exceptional service than the hotels themselves. And we all know that all these Gen AI, agentic AI, all these latest tools and models, they are only as good as the data that feeds them. So then it's starting the personalization journey by leveraging these AI tools. Start utilizing the AI agent tools, overlooking your booking engine, and you're going to start to understand how your customers and guests are interacting with brand.com. And then, as we said, this will start you being able to provide those full recommendations, tailored, personalized experiences, and that will drive loyalty, and you'll be able to provide that concierge service that you have within your hotel, online, and through your direct booking channels. As Anthony Capano recently said, we want to capture as close to 100% of your travel wallet as possible. And in today, with everything we have, with kind of innovation, AI, data, and having that right retailing mix, no one is better poised to own those channels than the hotels themselves. So this is your prime opportunity to shift things, to drive back direct bookings and loyalty by having the right data and the right retailing mix and the right AI tools to support that personalization journey. So without further ado, I think we're going to hand over back to the panel. Thank you.
Yes, wonderful. A warm applause, please, everyone. Thank you so much, Amy. Please have a seat. Come over. I figured you wanted to take this, right?
Thank you.
And then let's welcome on stage, please, Wilhelm K. Weber from Grand Metropolitan Hotels and Greg Everett from Holy Bob. Please take a seat, gentlemen. You have the microphones on your seat. Make yourself feel just like at home.
I think you guys can do better. Let's try the applause again.
Another applause. We have the third day of ITB Berlin Convention 2025. Yes, and the room is almost packed with the best people. Amy, thank you so much. And let's do this properly again so you really understand the quality of this panel, because I'm totally thrilled about this. So Amy, you are VP Innovation at Sabre Hospitality, at Sabre Corporation. And thank you so much for setting the scene. I'm looking forward to the conversation. You're coming here all the way from Singapore, right?
I have, yes, yes.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Greg Everett, you're like the co-founder and CEO at Holy Bob, and we can't miss it on your shirt, right?
On brand.
Right. Tell us a bit about yourself briefly.
So Holy Bob, we started Holy Bob 5 years ago, basically trying to solve a lot of the problems that kind of Amy talked about. Our kind of mission statement is, how do we connect travelers to incredible experiences? Because as much as people travel to go to amazing hotels, we believe that experiences drive travel. So how do we connect consumers to incredible experiences? And working with hoteliers, OTAs, tour operators, airlines to try and kind of bridge that gap between the fact that experience is booked offline and what travelers want is Holy Bob's main goal and mission.
Wow, I'd say you're fully on trend, because there wasn't a single session yesterday about commercial strategies where experience wasn't the key tag, right, that we were discussing. So thank you for being here. And then Wilhelm K. Weber, we know you also as a Wilco. I think we can do that, right, in this setting. You are the Chief Strategy and Digital Officer at Grand Metropolitan Hotels. I'm a hotel nerd myself. It's my absolute passion. But that's why I feel it's very important that you give us a brief explanation. What is Grand Metropolitan Hotels about? Because I think we know the brand, but it is bigger than we think.
Well, thank you very much. So we're a classic hotel operator, and we operate at the moment about 450-ish hotels on various brands. And the beauty is we have a very traditional brand, which has a heritage back to 1934. But we're a very young company, so we have a big emphasis on the technology platform and transformation.
Wonderful. And I can tell you on my own experience, whenever we discuss distribution and retailing, Wilco is the right one to invite. So thank you for being here. We just heard from Amy how AI and innovation are shaping the future of travel retailing. We touched also on the influence of social, right? The entire acquisition of customers is entirely changing. I'd like to dive deeper now. But first, I just want to hear from all of you, what would you say is one key challenge or opportunity, you can choose either, or in travel retailing today that you're seeing for your particular area? And maybe, Wilco, you start.
Oh, thank you very much. I think it's a great age for everyone, or a great time for everyone working in tech. Because always in hotel operations especially, it was operations, and then there was an IT department somewhere. And now this has changed a little bit, because we're in the shift of that technology is shifting the way how we do the business. So not only the budgets have emerged, but also the kind of importance and the influence to the organization. And I think it's super exciting. However, the biggest challenge you asked for, I think the biggest challenge is not to forget that the culture of some of our colleagues is very traditional. So even if we get very excited in my team about something, a beta or an MVP, we have to also take our colleagues who are more traditional on that journey in order to convince them to work with it. And that is probably the biggest challenge, because the rest is pure opportunities.
So we talk about proper change management in terms of mindset.
Yes, but thank God there are better people for that in our organization than me. So
All right.
I'm too impatient for that.
Right. Craig, what would you say? What's one of opportunity or challenge you see?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge or thing that I would say that everyone should take away is the standardization of consumer data or traveler data. Amy kind of touched on it in her presentation, but any personalization, curation that you need to do or you want to do to the end consumer has to be built on the back of a kind of standardized consumer record so that you understand who is your traveler, why are they traveling, who are they traveling with, what are the previous purchases that they've made. And if you don't have that kind of understanding or that data spread across lots of different systems, it's very difficult to personalize the consumer experience because, as Amy kind of quite rightly said, AI is only as good as the data that you put into it. So if kind of you go away from this, I'd suggest that you look at like where is your consumer data, how is it structured, and kind of how can you simplify and standardize that structure as much as possible.
Right. Amy, you set the scene, but still maybe you want to add one challenge or opportunity.
Yeah. And I think just following on that, I think it's about hyper-personalization. You know, it's about the ability to anticipate what your guests want before they actually know what they want. And I think, you know, to what Craig mentioned before as well, it's having access to the right data. You know, being able to unify your data, be able to really understand your guest profiles and unify those guest profiles. Because everything, you know, making sure that you're future ready is having those right foundations in place. And I think going forward in the future, you're almost going to start thinking about having your own travel buddy, you know, kind of like your own, utilizing tools like agentic AI and autonomous agents who are actually going to be making decisions on your behalf, where you can actually control your own data. You can control who you want to provide your data. It's your first party data. And that's going to become a lot more apparent. And I think the key opportunity to that is, who do you want to share that data with? I would definitely want to share that data with the hotels because I want them to have that 5-star service. I want them to create the right experiences and to tailor my trip based on that. So I think the opportunities are there. It's hyper-personalization, but the challenges are data.
100%. And I mean hotels, right? They sit on a goldmine of first-party data. We've discussed this for many years. Hotels tried a lot of approaches how to deal with this, but many struggle effectively to use it, right? So we don't see really good use cases at the moment. So what's holding them back, Wilco? And how can they bridge this gap of having the access to the gold mine, but then not being able to leverage it properly?
I think there are two things. Number one, and since we had panels before, you know, I'm always challenging that we look into the right system being the gold mine. So hoteliers, we always look at property management system data, and we think this is the gold mine. And to me, this is the most boring part of the customer profile data, because it's only part. The magic does not happen, check in, 8 hours in the room, check out, a breakfast, maybe a gin tonic at the bar. The magic happens, what do they do when they're not in the hotel? So I think there is a gold mine, but we have to change the perspective and to shift looking for where else could we get customer data, which is much more, and how can we enrich what we have with what we can get from the outside? And then it's really interesting.
Well, when I'm listening carefully, you're saying there's already a struggle internally within the hotel ecosystem to share data and leverage it. So now if you look at the travel value chain, we have 3 players here on stage. We want to share data. You said it's all really dependent on good data. So what do we see in the future? Do we see an increasing competition about good data, or do we see an increasing opportunity of collaboration around data? What would you say, Amy?
I think it's definitely a collaboration. And I think, you know, the way we view it is if you can unify your data into one centralized source, and, you know, you're going to bring together your PMS, your CRS data, your RMS data, and you start overlaying that with the AI agents and the tools, you're going to derive the right actionable insights and outputs that you want. So really, where's the source of truth? The source of truth doesn't necessarily matter as long as an industry, we can help support our hoteliers in bringing together centralization and unification of the data, and then being able to kind of leverage those learnings, clean up the data, make sure you have like one guest profile, and then learn from that.
May I
please.
just, I'd love to see that happening. And I love your approach to it because Sabre is quite a big player in the industry.
Yep.
However, I think I'm reluctant to see that utopic future happening, because what we've seen with intermediaries is there is a war for who owns the data. So it's not that the OTAs are passing everything on to the hotels. It's not that the single properties want to share everything with head office. And so everyone is kind of sitting there defending the data, although collaboration would have better opportunities. But if I look into everyone trying to monetize the data and trying to monetize ownership of data, I think it's not only going to be collaboration.
Please, Craig. Yep. Or Amy.
I think it's quite interesting, and we talk a lot about the intermediary layers and X and Y, and for me, you just need to take it back to the traveler or the consumer needs, right? And really obsess around what gets or provides with your traveler with that incredible digital experience. And at Hollybob, I like simplicity, so we talk about convenience and curation. So travelers are time poor, right? They are, 70% of experiences are sold within 72 hours of consuming them. So super late on in the consumer buying journey compared to flights and hotels where, they're generally booked much further away from travel. So it needs to be kind of convenient because they want, they're time poor, they're trying to have the best possible experience when they are in the hotel or they're on holiday. And then it needs to be curated because there's no point in just showing someone 500 products around. So how do you deliver on those needs? And I think, we talk about owning data and like how that competition for a bit. I think everyone in the travel value chain needs to think about, what are the consumer needs here and how do we deliver on those consumer needs? And then I think it comes back to collaboration to go, how do we deliver? Because that ultimately grows the industry, it grows the traveler's likelihood to come back, repeat purchase, enjoy the experience, et cetera, et cetera.
Amy, do you want to add?
And I think your point's very valid in terms of like what data OTAs and everyone else share. The one thing I would say is what the OTAs don't know is what your guests want when they come on property. Really being able to understand from a loyalty perspective. Like when we talk about hyper-personalization, I want to know that when I check into that hotel, what temperature my room's going to be. I want you to know that last time I stayed, it was my anniversary. Those touches, the ability to understand what I want in my minibar, that's what really drives personalization. That data is more valuable than anything else. And the OTAs don't have that data. So when we talk about unification of data, it's what data sources do you have access to? And then trying to map out what the gaps are, what would be nice to know. And you might not get them from all channels. But I tell you that, across the ecosystem, we're all trying to solve for the same thing, which is data fragmentation. So somebody needs to take a stance to try and work to to deliver that. And I think the best people place is with the hotels themselves.
Please, Craig.
If the room were to go, well, what should we actually do to achieve, make the next steps in that direction? What would you suggest?
So what we're looking at is about being able to bring together an orchestration layer through centralization. So one of our cores is about centralization, being able to centralize all the bookings so we can actually look at distribution optimization, but then we're overlaying that with being able to optimize the guest performance. So if you think about all the different technologies out there within AI today, it's about twinning different data sources. It's about using big knowledge graphs, which and using the AI tools to really drive that. The technology's there, and we're not going to be far away from it. I think we've talked a lot in the past about it, but actually I can start seeing a plan on how we get there. But we are working across the industry. It's not just in silos you can do this. We have to work in partnership to deliver it.
Wilco.
Again, I love especially simplicity. I love the 2C. I would add the third C in our company is conversion as a measure of the success of those two. However, we have been debating this direct against intermediary business. and everybody is talking about cost of sale and commission cost. I think it's not true, because in 2010 on this conference I had a panel with Booking.com and Google, and we three agreed already it's not about commission cost, it's about who owns the customer data and who is the person or who is the platform which is in the front when the guests start with their journey. And Google, by that point of time, said, it's us, search. Booking said, it's us, it's much more convenient because, I mean, I'm also a big fan of the Booking.com app because it's a better job than most of the hotel loyalty programs and booking various cities, various destinations, various brands. The answer that we have as a bet at the moment is mostly loyalty-based, so the loyalty programs from a chain point of view. But when we look into those three layers, we have to collaborate, that's true, but there is a race for who solves those two C's the best possible way, because that's where you can really play the margin. And that is, I don't want to say war, it's a competition. Yeah? So it is a collaboration, but also a competition to add two more C's to the conversation.
Please, Amy, yes.
And I think I'd just like to add to that as well. I think you're right. Like, you know, the traditional channels are very difficult to compete in. Like, we already know search as itself is, you know, that the top keywords are dominated by 85% of the top keywords are dominated by the two biggest OTAs. So it makes it very expensive to compete in that market. And it also, you know, it's about how do you, and you're then competing on commission. So then we start thinking about, well, let's look at social commerce, about the ability to kind of get people much earlier on the marketing funnel, and then you're not focusing necessarily just on kind of like price, but you're focusing on value. So how do you get in front of your guests those unique experiences that become kind of like Instagrammable shots, and then driving that and getting that inspiration and getting it back into the direct booking channels?
Yeah, you're moving the discussion to one step before the conversion, right? You're saying there's so much change happening, and 60% of travelers, you said in your presentation, they're not even sure where they want to go to. So what does that mean? What would you say in terms of marketing, in terms of acquisition, inspiration phase? What do the travel operators have to...
So I think it's about loyalty. It's about engaging with your guests, providing them the content. And if you imagine you start creating those kind of like really personalized experience, we talked about before, you know it was your anniversary last year. You come into the hotel and you've seen those shots on Instagram, the kind of like the flower beds, the champagne. That's what gets you really excited. And those, you know, utilizing your existing guests, providing them with the content, or providing them with incentives, providing them with booking incentives to try and influence their guests. All of that is possible, kind of like we talk about affiliate marketing, but maybe it's a guest affiliate marketing as well.
Yeah, Craig, I'm curious to hear from where you sit with Holybob. How do you approach this? How are you using AI and data to personalize the travel recommendations you give out to your audience?
Yeah, I mean, Holybob as a business plays like post-booking, because we basically really focus on how do we upsell and cross-sell experiences to consumers when they are either just about to travel or in destination. So in terms of the search and inspiration world, you know, we're not, as in the top of funnel, we're not so involved, but I think it's going to go through an incredible transformation in the next few years with, you know, AI agents and, you know, the kind of chat-based interfaces that you see with ChatGPT. But, you know, on our side, we think that you need, in order to drive conversion within experiences, you need to understand the context in which a consumer is making a buying decision. So why are they going to buy something, or why are they not going to buy something? And then we're using Gen AI a massive amount within our user interfaces to create content to wrap around the products to build that to explain that context back to the consumer. So what I mean by that is that if it's raining in Paris and you're with your family, and we know you did a walking tour yesterday, you're probably not going to want to do another 4-hour walking tour. But you might want to be doing a cooking class, or you might want to go to like some of the top museums because it's raining and you want to be indoors. So we're using Gen AI in order to create content, which is like, you know, we know families like you love to go to museums when it's raining in Paris. And these are some of the top museums in Paris because of X, Y, and Z reason. And we're creating all of that content on the fly and then auditing that content and putting it in front of consumers in order to drive conversion up by trying to explain to the consumer that we understand the context in which they are making buying decisions. So I think there's a huge like world of innovation out there in terms of how you use AI in order to drive recommendations. What do you put in front of the consumer, but also how do you convince the consumer digitally that you really understand why they're buying X or Y rather than
Yeah.
Z.
Well, I'm afraid we're almost out of time, and I realize half an hour is not enough to dig into this topic when you have all three, like if you have more than one stakeholder discussing the complexity of it. But what you just described is hyper-personalization as a best practice, right, in the area you're active in. Well, we have 2 minutes left, so I just want to collect from each of you briefly, because I encourage all of you to connect with them after the session, follow their companies to learn more. There's so much more you can see to get out of this topic. But Amy, what would you say? What's one bold prediction from your end? What are you seeing the future of travel retailing evolving to in the next 3 years?
I think it's all about hyper-personalization. And I think you're going to see a lot more of consumers or guests having their own kind of travel buddy, being able to make independent decisions on behalf of the guests and simplifying that booking journey.
Right, wonderful. Wilco, what will you say? What's your bold prediction?
I have
Optimism,
to take
please.
one more thing. I love what you guys say, but the first thing is before I can do all of these things, I have to catch the client into my ecosystem. And I'm not alone in trying to do so. So whatever I put in there, I also have to monetize against what I have to spend for the customer acquisition. But I think the race is no longer for commissions or cost of channel. I think the race is for who owns the customer and who solves exactly relevance, which is curation and your thing, and convenience. That seamless guest journey, I mean, this is something we haven't been good at, and this is why the OTAs have taken that space. So as hotel operators, we're catching up now, and we have to really put our loyalty programs into a full new thinking and put them on speed, because also the classic kind of, oh, you're a gold status, you get a bottle of free, I don't know, water, is not good enough anymore to compete.
Yeah, and I also would say if we start talking about loyalty, we have another fragmentation and another ecosystem to discuss. And how do you actually have your own loyalty system, or do you have to work across sectors and share those loyalty programs with everyone? So I re-invite you guys to discuss this next year. But to close this off, Craig, what's your take? What's the bold prediction?
Wilco, there's good news. Holly Bob is here to help with both of those problems.
It was just
so
a deal made on
you know,
stage.
we'll speak after. Look, I think the world is going to change at a remarkable rate, and convenience and curation and experiences are going to be at the absolute forefront of the consumer needs. And if you don't kind of change the mindset to start mindset to start thinking about that, you'll be caught on the back foot. So I would be suggesting to everyone to kind of get ahead of it, think about, how do you standardize your data sets? How do you understand consumers? And then how do you deliver convenience and curation to your consumers by connecting them to incredible experiences?
Right. Well, I think it's a really complex topic, as you all can see, right? Time was certainly not enough to unpack all of this, but I take away some homework for the industry. So it is about collaboration, but yet we still have to find out how we do this, because there is a race for competition around the ownership. Although I wonder if the consumer actually wants to be owned, so I think they have a say in that too. But I think a lot of homework, right? So let's continue the conversation offline, connect with the speakers, and everyone, please, it was an absolute honor to have these three on stage. We had Amy Reed, VP Innovation at Sabre Hospitality at Sabre Corporation. We had Wilco Weber, Chief Strategy and Digital Officer at Grand Metropolitan Hotels, and Craig Everett, Co-founder and CEO at Holy Bob. It was an absolute pleasure. Please, one big round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.